Hey guys, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a different video than usual. You saw in one of my last videos I mentioned that I had something special planned for Halloween, and today is obviously the day. I absolutely love Halloween and I'm obsessed with everything like spooky and creepy, and I literally have an obsession with watching like abandoned place videos, serial killer videos, like haunted videos, like with Ouija boards and whatever. Like, don't use Ouija boards, never, but like I like watching other people use them because like it's not affecting me. Basically, I just love everything scary and creepy, and I kind of have an obsession. I honestly watch more scary YouTube videos than I do like beauty and fashion videos, which is saying a lot considering that's literally what I do. But that being said, since it is Halloween, I figured what better excuse to bring something scary and spooky to my channel. So I'm going to be telling you about a murder hotel that was actually located very close to where I live. It was located in Chicago. It's obviously no longer in existence, hence why I said was. But this is all about that, who owned it, what happened, how it disappeared pretty much. Like I said, it's very close to where I live, so I find this one especially interesting. So that's why I thought I would choose this one to share with you. I've also never seen any videos on it before, so, you know, original content. But if you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and to subscribe so you can check out my other videos when I upload. And other than that, let's just hop right on into the video. Okay, so the person who created the murder hotel goes by the name of H.H. Holmes. Although his real name was Herman Webster Mudgett, but he did change his name, which we'll get to that in a second. But he was born in New Hampshire in 1861, and he was married and had a child. But in 1885, he abandoned his wife and his child and moved to Illinois, where he changed his name legally to H.H. Holmes, which was kind of a nod to Sherlock Holmes. He ended up getting a job in a pharmacy here in Illinois, and he would steal money from the people that worked with him. Everyone described him as a charming and likable person, which explains why throughout the course of this whole story so many people like fall into his trap, whether it's him taking money from them or literally ending up killing them. So that kind of like explains the whole thing. Everyone was just kind of like lured to him because he was so charming, and everyone just thought he was such a great person. But obviously he wasn't. His employer at the drugstore ended up dying. He didn't kill him, it was like a medical thing he ended up dying from. And he ended up convincing the widow of his employer to sell him the drugstore, even though he wasn't a doctor, literally had no medical license, was just some random average person. Shortly after he had bought the drugstore, the widow vanished completely, so people assumed that she was his first victim. He eventually had a lot of money from stealing it from the people he worked with and now making money from this drugstore, and he bought the property across the street from the drugstore and decided to build a ginormous building on it. Now the plan was for the bottom floor to be filled with like shops and stuff, and then the top was going to be like apartments, which ended up being like the hotels. And he did this during the World Fair because he knew would attract like a lot of attention, a lot of people would stay there. This building obviously ended up being what is considered his murder castle, and while it was being built he frequently had the architects and builders like switched out for new people because he was afraid that people would catch on to his scheme, since he had a lot of traps and stuff, which we will get to in a second. But he switched out people frequently because he was afraid if people worked there for too long then they would start wondering why he had all these weird things being built, and then they would figure out what he was gonna do, which I guess is like, I mean, in an evil person way, that's pretty smart of him to think of. In 1892, the murder castle or murder hotel was completed, and it had over 100 rooms and stretched for a block. The murder hotel, an American Horror Story hotel, is actually based off of this hotel, although they're in two different locations. Obviously, American Horror Story takes place in California, and the actual murder hotel is in Chicago, or was in Chicago. The American Horror Story hotel was based off of the one in Chicago. Hence all of like the trap doors, you know, all of those things that you see in the show. That's essentially what it was like in the real thing. And if anyone has ever seen the show Timeless, I absolutely love that show. One of the episodes, the main characters actually ended up getting trapped in the murder hotel. They were in a room that like was completely airtight. They were losing oxygen, and I will tell you a little bit more about that as I start talking about the types of traps and rooms and all that stuff in the hotel. But they got trapped in one of those in the show, and obviously they escaped. Sorry, spoiler alert, but you know, the show had to go on somehow, so if they all died, you know, it couldn't go on. But yeah, so they got out, but it was also in there, and this time it was actually in Chicago. It was like the literal murder hotel, not just like a spin-off of it like how it was in American Horror Story. Every single room in his murder hotel was soundproof, and they had lots of traps and different things, which was why it ended up becoming like a murder hotel and why he had changed the plan so many times, because no like normal hotel would build trapdoors and all of the weird stuff that I'm about to tell you about that he built. He had lots of passages, trapdoors, and there were stairs that led to absolutely nowhere. And he also had torture rooms, which included rooms that were airtight where he could put gas in there, which would be like a gas chamber, essentially like killing the people, or he could just slowly release all of the oxygen so they would just end up suffocating and dying. He also had a few metal rooms that had like flamethrowers in them, and he would burn the victims to death, so they would basically just be like running around on fire in this giant metal room. And then he also had other rooms, which is really weird, and I don't really understand what the purpose of this is at all. Like, thinking in the sense of like someone who's building a murder castle, this doesn't make sense to me. But some rooms had 5 doors and other rooms had like none at all, and to me that doesn't make sense. Like, why 5 doors? Why none? Like, I mean, I guess like, oh, like it's creepy, there's 5 doors and there's no doors, but like I don't really understand what the purpose of that is, so I don't know. But he had those. He lived in the building himself, and in his bathroom he had a trap door. And this trap door, this is so creepy, but the trap door in his bathroom led to like a chute where he would literally just drop the bodies down, and they would go straight to the basement where he would like essentially like take care of them like however he was going to, which I'll further get into. But he would basically, all of the like the murder rooms were in the top few floors, and so they were like nearby to his room, which was also in the top few floors. So he would literally take the body from wherever they were killed, bring it to his bathroom, and like shove them down this like chute to go to the basement. I'll get into like further detail about like what he did to them after they were like dead and down the chute into the basement, but like a general idea is they would either be cremated, dismembered, dissected. Like, he would just take care of the bodies in whatever way seemed fit, and like I said, I'll get into more detail about that in a second. But yeah, basically that's like the gist of what he did. I found like a little quote here on a website, and it says, if you were staying at the World's Fair Hotel, more commonly known as the H.H. Holmes House or Murder Mansion, you might run up a flight of stairs and find that it led to nowhere. You'd open doors and see only solid brick. You'd enter a bedroom, hear hidden pipes quietly come alive, and smell the gas seeping in. You'd try to run and realize you were locked in. And even if the door opened, you probably couldn't ever find your way out. I mean, just imagine how terrifying that would be. Like, you're in your hotel, you think you're safe, you know, like, I mean, I'm always a little scared wherever I go, just because, you know, I read stuff like this, so I'm cautious. But, you know, you think you're like relatively safe in your hotel, you're just walking down the hallway, you find yourself in a hallway that like leads to nowhere, or in a room that you end up trapped in, and you literally realize like, I'm gonna die, because you can't find any doors, you can't find a way out, and you're just like sitting there like waiting for yourself to like pass out and die. Like, that is terrifying. In many areas of the hotel there were like alarms and triggers, so when people would walk by or set it off, he would like get a little like alarm or like notification type thing in his room, so he would know that a person was near one of his traps, and then that's basically how he knew to like activate it, like send the gas in, release the oxygen, send out the flamethrowers, whatever it was. Like, that's how he knew that people were like in his trap, and to activate them to like get on with the killing process. Many of his victims were actually women, and more specifically a lot of them were blonde women, which is really creepy to me because obviously I'm blonde and woman, so. But he also did kill like men and children, but I guess the most common was blonde women. Still creepy. But a lot of them were also apparently people that worked for him, whether it was at the drugstore or people that like worked in the hotel, like cleaning it up and whatever. Okay, so next what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna try to say it in like the least like weird way possible, and I don't mean it as in like a good thing, but like I'm not gonna lie, this guy was kind of a genius in like a geniusly evil person, or an evil genius way. He would convince people to take out like life insurance policies and put him as the beneficiary, and he would literally kill them right after. So he would take like all of the money from their life insurance policy. So that, like, along with the whole like building it around the time of the World Fair, changing out like the contractors and people so they wouldn't notice what he was up to, like convincing people to take out a life insurance policy so he could get the money. You can see that this guy is obviously like some sort of a genius in an evil way. Maybe even a sociopath. Who knows? To be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, he could be a sociopath. I mean, Shane Dawson would have to tell me for sure, but...
Hey, what's up you guys? Yes.
Sounds like a sociopath to me. I mean, even the fact that it says that everyone thought of him as like super charming and nice, and that like basically like he would lure them into like these traps and whatever because of his charm. Now back to what he did to the bodies after he killed them. He would donate their skeletons to medical schools. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but he was in some sort of like medical program before he ended up moving to Illinois, like college type of time of like his life. And like obviously, like I said before, he wasn't a doctor, never got a medical license, so like he probably, I'm assuming, didn't complete it, but he knew how to dissect people pretty darn well. So he would literally dissect people, he would salvage their skeletons and their organs, and he would either sell them to medical schools to use as like practice for medical students, or he would sell them on the black market. And then the people, or like the organs, whatever, probably the ones like when he burned people to death, but those that he like couldn't salvage and sell on the black market or to medical schools, he would put them in his crematorium. Like I mentioned before, he would cremate them, or he would pour acid all over them, essentially like disintegrating every bit of them. Eventually he got bored of Chicago and his little murder thing in Chicago, so he had some people watch his building, and he gave specific instructions not to go on the top floors, which is, like I mentioned, where his murder things took place. He ended up convincing a friend to help him fake his death so he could collect the life insurance policy, but instead he killed his friend, and then he convinced his friend's widow to travel with him along with 3 of their kids, and 2 of these kids were a girl and 1 of these kids was a boy. He ended up killing the 2 daughters in Toronto, and the police somehow found out, and that's kind of like how they caught on to him a little bit. They began looking for him, and he ended up in Indiana, where he killed the boy. He put the boy's body in a fireplace, which is really gruesome, but they found some like small remains of the boy that weren't burned in the fire, and that's how they ended up kind of like getting more on his tail to find him. They eventually found him in Boston and obviously placed him under arrest because, you know, at this point they had only known about the murders. Obviously, like, he murdered 3 people as far as they know, so of course they're gonna place him under arrest. Sorry for the squeaking and loud noises. It's my dog. Like, no, squeaking kind of brightens the mood, huh? Maybe it makes it creepier if you didn't know what that was. After he was arrested, the police started like digging into him and finding out about him, and just like who he was as a person, not necessarily the evil things yet, but they found out about his hotel, so they went to go check it out and speak to people who worked there to learn more about him. And that is when the custodians told the police that they were not allowed to go on the top floor, which obviously the police found suspicious because, like, if you hire people to take care of a place while you're gone, why would you have floors off limits, you know? The police then went and investigated the top floors of the hotel, and what they found was pretty creepy, pretty disgusting, pretty gruesome. They found the remains of many different bodies that he had not gotten around to like finishing disintegrating or burning or whatever he was going to do with them. They found blood everywhere. They found blood-soaked clothes. They found all of his chemicals that he used to, I guess, like disintegrate people, or like, what's the word? Dissolve them. Like, mainly the chemicals were like acids that he used to like dissolve the people so they weren't like poof. They also found a whole stash of medical tools. Like I said, he would like dismember the bodies and send like the skeletons and organs to medical schools and the black market. So he would like obviously take apart like the bodies and whatever. So he had those surgical tools for that purpose. But I mean, like, with someone that crazy, like, do you really need an explanation for why they have stuff like that? Along with the many medical tools that they found, they also found like torture devices that, self-explanatory, he was a murderer. Why wouldn't he have torture devices, you know? After they had found all that, they obviously knew what's up with this guy. They knew he was crazy, like a serial killer. And in court, he ended up confessing to 27 murders, but they estimate that the number is more like over 200 because they compared like the remains that they found along with a bunch of missing persons, because a lot of people had gone missing around the time. Shocker, I wonder why. It's not like they were being murdered in a hotel or something, but they ended up realizing that all these missing people, or at least most of them, were probably due to the fact that there was like a murder hotel in town. So in total they estimate that it was well over like 200 different people, even though he only confessed to 27. But even with all these like missing persons like reports and stuff where they can kind of try to match it up and like figure out, oh well, this person was probably there, whatever, they still like can't really tell for sure, because he obviously hid the evidence really well, because the hotel was obviously like designed to hide those things. Like, he obviously didn't want people to find out. He built it with a chute to dispose bodies, like a crematorium, like things like that. He obviously didn't want people to find out. I mean, I'm sure most people who do that kind of thing don't want to get caught, you know, but his hotel was built like to hide it. So like regardless of like how many things you can match up where and how many like estimates you can make, like you can never really know for sure. Nobody knows. Obviously, like I said, this was like a long time ago, like late 1800s at this point. And so he faced their version of the death penalty, which was hanging, and his death took place on May 7th, 1896, and it was in the Philadelphia prison because that's where he was sent to after he was caught in Boston. Although it is rumored that since he obviously had a lot of money, that he bribed the police to let him go and kill someone else instead. So this rumor has been going around obviously like since it happened, and as of March 2017, his like ancestors, like his family that's alive now, has had his body exhumed and is having it DNA tested to see if it is actually him or if the rumor is true and that it was actually someone else. Another thing which I find to be extremely ironic and frankly kind of irritating considering what he did to other people, his final wish was to be placed in a casket and surrounded by cement so nobody would have access to his body and nobody could like essentially dig him up and dissect his body, which like I said, I find that extremely ironic. And like the fact that he did that to other people, and he's like, no, like I want to be surrounded in cement, I don't want anyone to do what I did to them, you know, like, well, maybe we should go by the logic of if you wouldn't want someone to do it to you, don't do it to them. In 1985, so about like 89 years before he died, not before, after, 89 years after he died, 2 men broke into the hotel and set it on fire, completely destroying it. Nobody's really sure like exactly why. Like, I mean, obviously it's a horrible place and lots of horrible things happen there, but people aren't really sure if it was like, you know, like a victim's family member or ancestor, or, you know, if they just had a problem with him and his murderous ways in general. But that did happen. They burned it down 89 years after he had died. They just went in there and someone like saw them from across the street or whatever. Obviously they got out though. They didn't like burn in the building. They burned it down and left before they would get stuck in there, you know. Now in its place there is a post office which is rumored to be haunted. People say that you'll go in there, you'll see shadows and things out of the corner of your eye, or you'll feel like someone's like touching your shirt, touching your leg. Like you'll feel like all of a sudden there'll be like a really cold spot and there won't be vents around. Like your typical like little spooky ghostly activity. Honestly, I really want to go. It's just a post office, but I really want to go there and just like, you know, see if I see anything. That sounds ridiculous and stupid. Like, it's a post office, but like it's a haunted post office. Something really creepy that Holmes said before he died was, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing." To me, that's very creepy. But like, it also shows just how messed up of a person he is. I mean, do you really need any more evidence that he's a messed up person after you know all the things that he's done? But I feel like that just like really seals the deal right there. The fact that he was supposedly born with the devil in him, and you can't blame him for murdering. Also, one of the last things he said was, he said it to someone, I'm not sure who exactly he said it to, I'm assuming it was a prison guard if it was like right before he died, but he said that he was literally turning into the devil. Shortly after he was killed, faced the death penalty, died, whatever you want to call it, many people that were close to him in some way, and I don't mean close as in like they supported his actions or were good friends of his, but I mean like people that he had like a specific type of relationship with throughout like the recent years, they ended up just randomly dying. One of the like main prison officers that worked not like with him but like was around him all the time ended up dying. I think he ended up actually killing himself, so that's not really like just like randomly dying, but there's a few more other people that were like around him or had something to do with him in some way, shape, or form that ended up doing that as well. So I feel like maybe it was something kind of like urging them, or like something in their heads, like, I don't know, maybe the devil, because apparently it was in him. His attorney ended up catching on fire, and I don't know exactly what building it was in. I don't know if it was in like his house or wherever. I'm assuming it was his house. But wherever he was, the whole thing burned down except for a single photo of H.H. Holmes. There was no remains of anything. Like the attorney, like completely gone, but one singular photo of H.H. Holmes remains completely untouched. And I feel like that's just enough evidence right there to prove that like these people dying had something to do with him and what he said about the devil being in him, or him turning into the devil. Because like, what kind of a coincidence is that? Like, that's just too crazy of a coincidence to not have some sort of like major connection. And that's why I said about like the devil getting in those people's heads, because I feel like that's what it was. It was like, maybe in some way, because of all the evil things he did, he himself was actually in some form like not necessarily turning into the devil, but you know, his spirit was obviously evil, so maybe he came back and took care of everyone else around him. And by took care of, I mean killed them in some way. And then the final person I'm going to mention who ended up dying, there's many others, but I'm just like naming a few like major ones, was the final caretaker of the building. He was another one of those people that I mentioned that had committed suicide, and this was in 1914, and he did leave a letter, but all it said was, "I could not sleep." But his family and people who were close to him after he had died, they had spoken about how he was supposedly experiencing things in the building, and was being haunted himself by living there and taking care of it and whatnot. I feel like that just goes back to the whole like something got in their heads. I mean, that much evil, that much negativity, regardless, like in H.H. Holmes, that much evil, that much negativity, and I'm sure the whole building, like there wasn't an ounce of positivity. Like I can't even imagine how it must have felt to just walk in there. Just thinking about it, like I can just imagine feeling like the energy shift as you walk through the door. All of the people, like hundreds of people that had been killed there, literally just wandering the halls, filled with anger, sadness, longing for their old lives, because obviously like it was taken from them unnecessarily. So like, I mean, I'm not surprised that that building was haunted. I'm not surprised that the post office built in this place was haunted, just like when you build a house over the burial site, you know? It's haunted because dead people, ghosts, spirits, whatever. So apparently that was his reasoning. Although he only said, I could not sleep, his family did confirm that he believed he was being haunted. He had many paranormal experiences, and it was honestly like driving him crazy at that point. So I feel like, in a way, H.H. Holmes was still killing from beyond the grave. So, now after all of that dark stuff has been said, that's the end of this video. I find this whole thing very interesting. So many horrible things happened there. Like, so many people died that didn't deserve to die. Like, he was an evil, horrible person. But stuff like that just really interests me. Part of it I like, kind of like not putting myself in like the mind of the person, but it's like it really makes me wonder like what goes through a person's mind that they would do that. Like I'm really interested in kind of like psychology and like how different people's minds work, and that's part of the thing that's just like interesting to me. And also I think I just like being scared. I don't know, I mean I hate being scared when I shut off the lights at night. Like I have 4 nightlights in my room because I can't sleep with the lights off. 3 nightlights too dark, 2 nightlights too dark, 1 nightlight too dark. Has to be 4. Sometimes I wish it was more. Oh, that rhymes. But honestly, I think I just love being scared. I mean, I love kind of like the psychology aspect behind it. I do believe heavily in ghosts and spirits and all that stuff, which is why I said at the beginning, never mess with the Ouija board. I said it in the beginning of my Ouija board makeup look. Never mess with the Ouija board. Like I believe heavily in all that. It interests me so much. And I don't know why. Maybe that's a little weird, but I'm just very interested in all that. Basically the gist of that whole little rant there was I'm weird. I find all that stuff extremely interesting. I like being scared even though I hate being scared. And these are the kind of videos that I watch on a daily basis. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe if you do enjoy this video, I could do another one, because honestly I'm pretty sure my family is sick and tired of hearing me rant and talk about all these scary things that I read about, learn about, research, all that type of stuff, because honestly I research this stuff so much and I literally have nobody to tell it to, because like I said, my family is probably so irritated hearing about it every single day. So yeah, if you do like this, I will do more. I mean, not like every day, you know, like obviously I'm still gonna do makeup, but you know, every once in a while, maybe like once a month, I could do stuff like this, because I really find all this stuff interesting in like a creepy, spooky, dark, you know, kind of way. So yeah. Was looking for photos to insert into this video. I actually stumbled across an article that I had not yet seen, and it basically just goes over everything with them exhuming his body and DNA testing it, to a bunch more like interesting little facts that I didn't find anywhere else. And honestly, I think all of them are super interesting and I love to share them. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up so I know. And then I will do a part 2. It will definitely be a lot shorter, but it'll just share some more interesting facts and about whether it was actually him or not that they buried. I guess we'll end the video off here. Still on kind of a dark note, slightly less dark than the main video content itself. But yeah, happy Halloween. This was kind of like my little Halloween special type of thing. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I think I've said that like 5 times already, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!